What's up, everyone? My name is Nick Clark, and welcome to Play Hard and Love Big Radio, the official podcast of Spotted Dog Yoga and SUP, based out of Folsom, California. Here at Play Hard and Love Big Radio, we're dedicated to bringing you the inspirational people and the inspirational stories so that you can connect to your center and live a more purposeful and passionate life. We bring people on this show and share stories on this show that hopefully make a huge difference for you. And I know from what I've heard lately and from what we're seeing in our numbers that you are enjoying and digging this show. Now, if you're brand new to the show, get it, totally finish this one because it's going to be great. And after that, go back and check out one of our episodes from the past 5 seasons. There's over 100 episodes for you to dig into that are really, really amazing with great guests and great information and lots of inspiration to keep you going from day to day. You know, it's cool too, as we move into season 6, we are preparing to do a bunch of different recordings this coming week with a lot of really neat people that have been very successful professionally as athletes or as business professionals. And we have a solid rock star lineup coming up for you, including Dan Nevins from the Wounded Warriors Project, one of my good buddies. And I think you'll really enjoy all the other amazing guests that are coming too. So keep your eyes and your ears peeled. This episode is just a quick episode that I wanted to bring into play for you about my athletic career. And something that I've done all the way throughout my athletic career and my business career that has helped me become successful, and something that I think a lot of people are very reluctant to do for various reasons. You know, from past experiences, they're reluctant to do it. From a fear of failure, they're reluctant to do it. But ultimately, what I've found is that if I just keep doing this one thing, that I will become successful at whatever it is that I want to do. And I want to share that one thing with you. And that one thing is to throw yourself 100% in to whatever it is you want to do. Whether that be getting into a relationship, beginning a new athletic endeavor, starting a new job, creating a new profession. Put yourself 100% in. The worst thing you can do is get excited about something and just put a few toes in the water to test it out, or to think about doing something for 10 years before you actually do it. The very best thing that you can do, and the thing that I consistently do over time that yields powerful results, is I throw myself 100% into what I'm doing. I'm not looking for a backdoor exit. I'm not trying to get out of what I'm doing. I'm putting myself in as if I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. You know what? And if I put myself in as if I'm going to do it for the rest of my life, and I try my hardest and I do the very best that I can in every situation possible, and I'm constantly working on improving myself, then ultimately, if that doesn't work out, that relationship, that profession, that athletic endeavor, if it doesn't work out, then at least I know I put myself 100% in. Now, why do people not put themselves 100% in? Well, there's a lot of reasons. And I would say that and argue that probably the number one reason that people don't put themselves all the way in is because of their past experiences with putting themselves 100% in. It's like, oh, you fell in love when you were a teenager. So much you fell in love with this person. And then that teenager, you know, like the age of 17, decided they wanted to party and move on and broke up with you, broke your heart. And you thought, you know what? I'm never throwing myself all the way back in again because that sucked. I mean, that's an example. That's an example of how that may happen in a relationship, you know, but in a job, you may have heartbreak in a job. You throw yourself all the way in and then you get burned and it doesn't work out the way you wanted it to. And so the next time that a job opportunity comes up, you're less likely to put yourself in, because by putting yourself all in, you risk the opportunity of having your heart broken again. And then it becomes this vicious cycle of no longer throwing yourself 100% in and always having a backdoor exit, always having a way to get out of what you said you wanted to put yourself all the way into. And that really is a bad habit to create. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my athletic endeavors, some things that I've done throughout my career that have been successful and things that I've thrown myself all the way in with. And I will start with my soccer career. My soccer career started when I was really young. So when I was 5 years old, and I played all sorts of sports. I played soccer, I played baseball. I dabbled with football, but never got to the place where I had pads on through a helmet on. It just never got there for me. It was always soccer, baseball, basketball. And as I, went through junior high, it was those sports. As I got into high school, my freshman and sophomore year, I was basketball, I was soccer, and I was baseball. But then what I realized is I wanted to play professional soccer. And in order to play professional soccer, I first of all had to get into college and start to play some college soccer at a high level in order to get noticed. And so, of course, I expressed my interest in doing that with my parents, and my parents were really supportive of me. And at that point in my junior year of high school, I decided that instead of playing all these other sports, what I was going to do is I was going to play soccer. So I played high school soccer for Durango High School in Durango, Colorado. And then in the off season, because Durango was such a small town, what I would do is I would go with my dad or friends, and we would go down to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we would go down there to play in a more competitive league so that I could, get noticed, so that I could get more experience, and hopefully so I could get on the Olympic development program, so that, possibly get a scholarship to play soccer somewhere. And it was a lot of dedication. Oh my goodness. Holy crap. I think about my parents driving me up and back. I think about just all the time that I spent out of the ordinary high school scene so that I could develop the skill and hopefully become a college and then professional athlete. And I mean, it was like 3 hours down to Albuquerque, 3 to 4 hours, something like that. And then 3 or 4 hours back. And sometimes we'd go down on a Saturday morning early and play 2 games and then go back. Sometimes we go down on a Tuesday evening after school, or like get out of school a little early, go down, practice, and then come back to Durango that night and then go back to school the next day. It was constant. We were driving and traveling always. Well, ultimately what happened is I started to rise up in the ranks in the quality of my game above high school. High school level at that point in time was more of a little bit of a leisure activity, compared to club sports. And I know it's probably pretty similar nowadays too. But ultimately what happened is that I was picked up to play on the Olympic development program team for New Mexico, which would have been impossible for me to do really in Colorado, being from Durango, because Denver is where most of those big teams were, which is about 6.5 hours away from me. So by making the move to play in Albuquerque on my club team and really putting in that effort, my parents and me putting in that effort to do that, I was able to get on the New Mexico Olympic Development Program team. And then I had the opportunity to travel with the New Mexico team and play in a lot of different tournaments. And I remember the game-changing, tournament-changing moment for me was when I was playing in La Jolla. It was Surf Cup. And I think it was La Jolla, somewhere down there in San Diego. And I was with the Olympic Development Program team at that point in time, but I was playing with my club team down at the Surf Cup, and I had a really phenomenal tournament. But one of the last games I went, and I was a goalkeeper, and so I went and I dove in for a ball, and the guy kicked the ball. I grabbed the ball, but then his foot came over the top of the ball and it kicked me right in the face. And you can kind of, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can kind of see a little scar I have in my face, but knocked me silly. And I had a concussion. I was just bleeding all over the place, and at that point in the game, we were up 2-0. And then I played the rest of the game with a concussion, and we ended up losing 3-2. And I don't remember the last 3 goals that were scored on me. It was that bad. But what I do remember after the game, as I was walking off, is there was a man sitting there named Jeremy Gunn. And Jeremy Gunn at that point in time was the head coach of Fort Lewis College in Durango, which is a Division II powerhouse in my hometown, randomly, right? I guess not randomly, but just so amazing that he was at that game. He saw it. He checked on me. He's like, wow, you've had a really great tournament. Well, ultimately what happened in the story of my career is that I came back to Durango, finished up my high school career. Jeremy recruited me. I ended up playing for 5 years at Fort Lewis College in Durango, my hometown. Sweet decision and opportunity. And in 2005, I was on my senior year on a team that was phenomenal. And we ended up winning 22 games, losing 0 games, and we tied 1 game 0-0. And we won the national championship for Division II soccer. I was an All-American goalkeeper that year. It was a phenomenal experience. But looking back at it, and in regards to this episode and the topic on this episode, I know for a fact that I would not have been able to get where I got in my career, college career, and beyond that, if I had not thrown myself all the way in early. If I hadn't in high school sacrificed the normal high school life, if my parents hadn't sacrificed, I wouldn't have had my full ride scholarship to Fort Lewis College. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to play for a national championship. I wouldn't have had the All-American status, an award that I received, and then from there, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to go play with the Colorado Rapids in Major League Soccer or Chico Rooks, for the latter part of my professional career. So it really took something, but I had to throw myself all the way in order for that to happen. So when I took myself all the way out was after I threw myself all the way in. I ended up in Chico, and I was playing for the Chico Rooks in the summertime, which was one of the first professional soccer programs. I think it was the first professional soccer program in the state of California. And so I played for the Chico Rooks in the summer, and then in the fall time, I was the goalkeeper coach for Chico State's men and women's soccer team. And that's all that I did. I ended up, getting into a little bit of trouble as far as like taking care of myself. Chico's kind of a party school. So I would coach from 1 till 7. And then, I was done coaching, and there was plenty of partying to do, and there was availability for me to sleep in. So of course I threw myself all the way in to partying. And that's an example where throwing yourself all the way in didn't do me so well. I got out of shape. I was unhealthy. I had a tryout ultimately with the Galaxy, and I hurt myself, and then poof, that was the end of my career. Crazy, so I guess that, it is true. You can throw yourself all the way into the wrong things, and that can eat at you as well. But lesson was learned. My professional career ended, but I had a great run, and I credit that to throwing myself all the way in. Moving forward into my yoga career, I've been teaching and practicing yoga for about 12 years, and actually it's like for almost 13 years, something like that. Shoot, goes by so fast. But at the point in time that I discovered yoga was when I was trying to recover from my injury. And I had somebody who took me to a couple classes in Chico, and it felt really good. They had a 30-day for $30 program like we do at Spotted Dog Yoga. And so I was like, all right, I'll check it out. So I jumped in, and I did 30 days of Bikram straight, like right away, threw myself 100% in. And then I stopped for a bit, moved from Chico to Folsom, and I was distributing a health product, and I ran into a woman who had a yoga studio there. So I took 30 days for $30 there, and I got really into it again. And I remember I was driving down the freeway, and I got a phone call from this woman, and she said, Nick, I think you might enjoy our assisting program that we have on this coming up weekend. And I thought, that sounds really cool. And I looked at my schedule, and I was like, oh yeah, that sounds cool, but I can't make it. I'm out of town. Like, so what else should I consider doing? This is something I like. And she said, well, you should check out our teacher training program. I think, you might be interested in that. It'd be great for your practice. Maybe you could be a good teacher. You have a good, amazing, vibrant energy about you. You should maybe check that out. And I was like, okay, well, tell me a little bit more about it. Oh, all right. So it's 8 weekends long, and it's like $3,500. And I'm thinking, shit, where am I going to get $3,500? Like, okay, I got 8 weekends, no problem. But $3,500, are you kidding me? And is this worth it? And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is worth it. And my trade of jumping all the way in, I did it again. And I just scrounged and found ways to make the money and to pay the program off over a longer period of time so that I could take the training program, but up to that point, I'd only done 2 solid months of yoga. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. So I threw myself all the way in, started practicing every day, did the entire training. Right when I was done with the training, well, prior to the training, I had already started teaching because I liked it, even before I had my certificate. Shh, don't tell anybody. I went and I started teaching at this little place called Body Investment Studios in Rancho Cordova. I was teaching at Taekwondo Studios in Sacramento area. I was teaching at CalFit, 2 different locations, one in Folsom, one off Sunrise. I was teaching almost 20 classes a week before I was even hired on at a yoga studio, before I even had my 200-hour certificate. But I was, at that point in time, was really well versed in teaching because, repetition is the mother of mastery. I mean, I practiced my ass off. I taught my ass off. I knew what I was doing, and I was hired on. And at that point, I was just teaching at the Folsom location for this studio. And then I became very popular in teaching at that studio. And, in order to grow classes in their other 2 studios, they would move me to different class times that were having a hard time getting people. And then I would grow the classes in those places. And so I ended up teaching there for like 3 years. And at the point that I was teaching there, at the point that I stopped teaching there, I was grossing the most amount of people per class of any teacher, including the ownership of the studio. And so it seemed appropriate at that point in time for me to stop driving all the way around town just for a paycheck and to start putting my attention on being a leader, less of an individual, more of a leader. And so what I started doing is considering the option of opening up a yoga studio. And luckily I had my wife, Katie, who was teaching as well in the Folsom location. And she had thrown herself all the way in, and she had motivated me to work with her to start a studio. And so that's how Spotted Dog Yoga and Sup was born. We threw ourselves all the way in. I mean, thousands and thousands of dollars in, more than you maybe even imagine, and hours and hours and hours. And for what? So that we can make a bigger difference, so that we could lead people, so that we could, have a life where it was less about us leading classes and more about leading other people to lead other people. And I got that from Baptiste Yoga. Baron Baptiste is such an incredible leader, and he motivated me and motivated Katie and inspired us to open a studio where it wasn't about us. It was about helping other people uplift other people who uplift other people who uplift other people. And I feel like that's always in the forefront of our mind, as how, like, can we inspire people to throw themselves all the way in with something, whatever it be. And so that's how it happened with yoga. And now here we are 10 years later with Spotted Dog Yoga and Sup. This January is our 10-year anniversary. And I can say certainly that we've thrown ourselves 100% in. And it's been the greatest experience of my life. And constantly I'm learning and humbled by that experience. Along the way, I mean, that's my profession, but along the way, I've always been an athlete. And I've always looked for ways to get into new athletic endeavors, as challenging and as scary as they may be. And, Katie, the boys, and I moved from Folsom, Northern California, to right outside of Boise, Idaho, about 3 years ago. And we run our studio in Folsom from here in Boise, but we go back once or twice a month it's either once a month or once every 2 months to work with the studio and to see all the community there, which it's like filled with phenomenal, energetic people who are committed to making a difference, and just lifts us, But while up here in Boise, it's been cool because Katie's entire family is up here. And so I was, they all joke with me, but I married into a really awesome family. They're all outdoorsmen, super fun and energetic. And they're the kind of people that don't make you feel bad for not being great at what you do. So that's really nice for somebody who's a beginner. But when I first got up here to Boise, I decided I wanted to go on a bike ride. And I had this mountain bike ride that I went on up at Bogus Basin, which is the little ski area up here. I say little, it's like got the biggest night game for skiing in North America. It's pretty amazing. And it's like 45 minutes from Boise, but they have sweet mountain biking. And I had a mountain bike from Jim Sweeney, who's a teacher at Spotted Dog Yoga. He gave me this bike that he had bought at Walmart or Target or something, kind of a cheaper bike, but he bought it for me, or he bought it and then he wasn't using it. And then he gave it to me so I could chase Owen around the trails in Folsom. And I brought it up here to Boise, and I had this mountain bike that wasn't great, but I was like, I want to try it. So I went up riding on this bike ride called Around the Mountain at Bogus Basin with this bike and Katie's cousins, Kyle and Brian. And I'm on this bike ride, and like right from the very beginning, the chain slipped or something went wrong. And so we had to adjust the gears. So I just had one gear instead of 10 gears. And I rode this enormous bike ride from start to finish with one gear on this Kmart/Walmart bike that Jim Sweeney gave me. And I remember on the downhill part of it, I felt like Fred Flintstone because I didn't have any brakes left. The brake pads had gone out. So I was sitting just above the bike, whatever the hell it's called, the post of the bike. And I had my feet down and I was like sliding myself to get myself to stop and whatnot. And it was kind of somewhat crazy and silly and stupid at the same time, and at that point I got down, we had a couple beers, and Brian was like, you should consider getting a new bike, and just, make sure you tell Katie that it's a safety thing. Like, you don't want to be riding a crummy bike all over the place that might break down on you, or you may wreck on, or whatever. And so of course I was like, went home and, communicated that to Katie, and she's been great about that. And she knows that it's important for me to be safe out there. So I purchased a bike, threw myself all the way in, got a sweet bike, and then started riding my bike like crazy, which is ultimately what ended up getting me so fit this year. I did over 350 miles on my bike up until the end of July. So I threw myself all the way into bike riding. And it just lifted my life up again, like something that I threw myself all the way into that took me to a whole new level of understanding. I didn't think about it. I didn't go around and sample 20 different bikes. I knew which bike I wanted. I didn't, I just didn't overthink it. I didn't wait a couple years, wait for a better time. I just went for it. And I'm so glad that I did. It was remarkable how it's changed my life. And on the end of July, I was headed up to a mountain bike ride up at Bogus with Kyle and cousin Kyle and Brian. And we do this amazing ride. And at the end, Kyle, he looks at me, he's like, I can't even believe it, man. We were bombing down these hills and you were right behind us. He's like, you're jamming on that bike, man. That's amazing. He said, I think that you might really enjoy bow hunting. And I looked at him and I was like, really? Bow hunting? Something I never really thought of before. I mean, I had been doing some fishing up here and I threw myself in and bought all the fishing gear and did all the fishing gear, and I love that. And so that's happening too. That's another thing I threw myself all the way in. But bow hunting, like, that's interesting. And he's like, with all the yoga you do and your attention on alignment and your intentional breathing and all those different things, I really think you'd be great at bow hunting. So I thought about it and I was like, well, that sounds kind of cool. When is bow hunting season? Like, this is how much I knew. This is the end of July this year. And he's like, well, my bow hunting partner that I used to bow hunt with, he moved to Oregon, and Eric, their other cousin, and I and this guy Ross were headed up to go hunting in northern Idaho beginning of September. And he's like, it'd be great if I had a partner to go with. And I'm thinking, shit, that's like less than a month. That's like just not less than a month. That's a little bit more than a month. So I thought about it, got home, just brought it up to Katie, and she's like, when else are you going to have a chance to learn to hunt? I mean, might as well start now. And I'm like, okay. So there I went again. And, Kyle and Katie, Eric, the whole community, they helped me like build a list of stuff that I needed to buy. It was an expensive ass month, August. And on top of that, I was jumping in the car early morning. I had weights in my backpack, 70 pounds of weights. And I was doing 5 to 10 mile hikes, preparing myself for this bow hunt. And it ended up turning into 2 bow hunts. And it was the most amazing and exciting and humbling and frustrating 2 weeks, well, it was actually 21 days of my life. And the cool, like, just the, now that I'm back and September's over and bow hunting season is over for 2023, all I can think about is what I can do to prepare to do it again next year. Um, just, like a lot of people don't understand hunting. I think a lot of people think that, hunters just get out there and it's super easy for them to hunt an elk or kill an elk. It is easy to hunt them, but it is not easy to kill them, and especially if you're a bow hunter. Let me tell you this. If it happened to be that we killed an elk, which we didn't, we had a lot of really, really close calls. But if it happened to be that we did, it would be a phenomenal amount of meat and food for our family for the year. Number one, that's pretty amazing to think that I could provide for my family in that way. And number two, it's really, really good for the herd. They give out tags in all the states based off of the herd population, and if there's too many bucks or too many bulls or too many elk in a certain area, then it becomes harder for them to reproduce because elk herds need space, they need water, they need food. But if they're not being killed off in some way, shape, or form via predators, right? Or, hunters being a predator, but like natural predators, and then there becomes an overpopulation, then the herd starts to suffer and the numbers drastically start to be impacted. So actually hunting and bow hunting, hunting in general, but for my modality, bow hunting, it's not only super freaking challenging to get within 40 yards of an elk to actually take a shot. That's really challenging. We're talking climbing like 9 to 10,000 feet in elevation, 15 to 20 miles a day. For what Kyle and I did was almost like 17 days of a hunt in the month of September. It's not easy, but also when that kill does happen, which it didn't this year, I think the percentage of that happening is like 10%, then it's a good thing for the herd, and I think a lot of people misunderstand hunters. They think, oh, they just go out there and they kill something and to eat it and that's it, period. There's nothing else to it. It's easy. It's not fair. It's not good for the animals. But in reality, it is good for the herd and the natural process of the herd. Elk and all wildlife were put on earth as resources, and we can choose to use them or not. But I'm definitely now become a fan and an advocate of hunting, responsible hunting, and more than that, bow hunting, because I know that it's good for all parties involved. And anyway, for me, even though we didn't get it, we didn't end up killing one, it was such a cool experience. There were so many times when we were within 100 yards of them. Sometimes we knew they were there. Sometimes we didn't know they were there. Sometimes we didn't know they were there right away, but then we found out that they were there because they saw us and they left. Sometimes we knew they were there. They didn't know we were there, but then when we got to 100 yards, they knew when we were there, and then they left. You got to deal with wind. You got to deal with other hunters. You got to deal with all the different like sides of the cliffs and side hilling, and you got to deal with sleeping in the wilderness for 10 days at a time. I mean, it's pretty damn rugged and humble. There was at one point we both were like, we should go home. We're frustrated. We did everything that we could do possibly, we felt like, to get in, to have a chance at even pulling our bow back. And it just didn't work out, and we both were like frustrated and wanting to leave, but we had to walk ourselves through it and stick with the process just as a way to learn, and I think I guess that's where I'll end this episode, because I could talk about my bow hunting experience forever, but I want to just end this episode with this. Like, it's not about the reward you get at the end. It's not about that. It's not about the championship at the end, although that was cool for soccer. It's not about the yoga studio at the end. Although it's cool that we have that studio, it's not where I want it to be. It has not impacted the amount of people that we want to impact. And that's why we continue to work on it, because it's a passion of ours. And it's consistently, there's an opportunity to grow and learn from it. My fishing, I didn't even talk about that, but my fishing, it's not about catching the biggest trout or catching as many fish as I can. It's about being out there and learning about it, learning how to use the proper flies, learning how to and where to put your fly in the water to increase your chances to mimic a fly so that a fish may bite on it. It's like very special, And then hunting, like, wow, oh my gosh, learning about the different terrains, how to deal with different weather, how to learn to layer so you don't overheat or so you're not freezing cold, so you don't die in the woods, being in shape enough so that you don't fall down a rocky cliff and kill yourself, understanding how to shoot a bow so that if you do have the opportunity to pull your bow back, you can, which, by the way, for that amount of days in the wilderness, we never even pulled our bow back one time. We were never that close to where it could happen, but there's such an opportunity to learn how the world works by throwing yourself all the way in, whether you do that athletically like I do it, it doesn't matter. You do it athletically, you do it professionally, you do it in your relationships, throw yourself all the way in and be open to learning from the experience. And if you're open to learning and you're not focused on what's wrong, you're just focused on the greatness of what it is that you're doing. And also you are committed to changing your perspective and learning and developing who you are along the way, then you're going to get the most out of it. And it's going to continue to change your life and forever change your life if you do that, way more than just dipping your toes in the water. Which is why I always recommend and think that people should check out our Awaken Yoga Teacher Training Program that we do. We do it every 6 months. We have another one coming up in February. If somebody wants to learn yoga, don't just dip your toes in there. Throw yourself all the way in, really. And I'll put some notes I'll put the link in the show notes for this one for Awaken Yoga Training, but you should do it. I did it, changed my life. Every single thing about my life changed because of it. And I believe that I am that person that puts myself all the way in even more than I was when I was born, because I did that training, that very first training, and because I continue to do trainings. So think about and write down and then go do what it is you want to do. And I believe that you will find that when you're playing hard like that, playing hard on a different level like that, you will naturally love big and attract more love your way, because that's the energy you're putting out into the world, is that you are open and willing to receive love 100%. Thanks for listening into this podcast and listening to me chat for 30 minutes. My name is Nick Clark. I am your host for today's episode of Play Hard and Love Big Radio, the official podcast of Spotted Dog Yoga and Sup, based out of Folsom, California. Check us out at spotteddogyoga.com. Play Hard and Love Big Radio is available on all the major podcasting platforms, including YouTube. So if you want to see my beautiful face, head to YouTube and check it out, or you can just imagine that I'm better looking than I am and listen to the audio formats as well. Look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of Play Hard and Love Big Radio. See you later. Peace.